Okay, now we have come to the next part of this mindfulness for young adult session. Now we were discussing KhaggaVisana Sutta, which is available in Sutta Nipata. Sutta Nipata is one of the books available in the Khuddaka Nikaya. And as I mentioned, this Sutta is more more talking about Pacceka Buddhas. That is how the commentary interprets it. And because the verses available in the Sutta are more explaining some sort of a seclusion and some amount of secluded practice, diligent practice, and again living alone. So not with many companions, not with many associations, but with more seclusion. So that is the repetitive term or statement highlighted in this sutta, and therefore it is attributed to Pacceka Buddhas. So that is probably, it can be some exaggeration, but anyway, that is how the commentary explains it. But each and every verse is mentioned by the Buddha, our Buddha, the Gautama Buddha, and commentary explains it like, so our Gautama Buddha is explaining, but the verse is first uttered by a Pacceka Buddha after he become enlightened. Now we were going through different verses. Actually, the whole sutta comprises of around 40 verses, and now we have covered almost half of them. And today also we have to discuss another verse. And today's verse and the next verse, actually I have taken two verses today, and talking about the Kalyana Mittas and the bad or the Papaka Mittas, that is the good friends as well as the bad friends. The first one talks about the bad friends, and a story going like one of the kings who was also named as Brahmadatta, and he had a really good reputation because he is righteous, and again he is keen on giving, on dana, and his country is also really prosperous. And one time they got a very good harvest, and at the end of the harvest, when the harvest was taken in, so people found that there are enough harvest available. There are too much harvest available. So what they did was the old stores they have thrown away and now try to put the new paddy or new harvest into the stores. So king, actually he was going around the city and going around the kingdom, and he noticed that people are doing something. So he noticed that people are taking some packs from the stores and they are simply throwing it outside, and certain other packs, so they are going and bringing inside and they are storing it. So the king inquired from the ministers, what are they doing? So the ministers actually replied them, sir, these people are storing the new harvest. In order to take enough space, so they are removing the old harvest and they are storing the new harvest. Then the king is asking, what are you going to do with the old harvest? They are telling that we have to simply throw them away, we have to destroy them. Then king was not happy and he asked, didn't you find enough space, at least in the queen's palace or any other person's gardens, at least to store them? Then the ministers replied, no, sir, we didn't find. So that's why we have to destroy the old harvest, waste the old harvest, and we have to store the new harvest. Then king suggested, okay, don't throw them, don't waste them, don't destroy them. So let's set up a place to give dana, give alms to various people, to whoever is coming, who are in need of food. let's try to give some alms, donations. Then there was one minister in the king's ministerial order, and he suggested king, there is no use of giving. Ultimately, whoever give or whoever not give, ultimately after some time they become liberated from the samsara. So there is no point of giving. So don't give. So such a wrong advice was given by one minister. So even maybe today, there are various ministers, there are various advisors who are advising to the king, advising to the, say, president or whoever the head of the state. So they probably can give a wrong advice. So therefore, king didn't implement it. So he didn't install or establish any, say, alms giving places, donation places. So he simply neglected. Again, another time also, king has noticed that people are throwing the old harvest and they are simply wasting it. And they are trying to store the new harvest. At that time also, king advised, don't do it, don't waste this paddy, don't throw this harvest. So let's donate this. Let's prepare some alms stalls so that I can give some giving to the poor people. Again, that same minister again advised, king, don't do it. And there is no use of giving. So he is denying the advantages of dana, alms, or advantages of donations, giving. And again, he was able to convince the king that there is no point of giving. So this has happened to the third time. So after it has happened to the third time, now king, he was actually a gifted person. He was actually a wise person. He was thinking, even though the kingdom has enough paddy, even though the kingdom has enough harvest, and there are excess harvest, even that excess amount, I don't have a capacity to give to the poor people because of these wrong ministers, because of these ministers with wrong views. So he was disgusted. He was not happy about these ministers, how they are advising. And he actually basically missed the chance to make merit. And therefore he was thinking to himself, there is no point of being a king to these kind of people. I better leave the kingdom. So what he did was he left the kingdom. He became a monk. And ultimately after further practicing, he became a Pacceka Buddha. And he uttered this verse, Papam sahayam parivajjayetha anatta dasing visame nivittham sayanna seve pasutang pamattang eko chare KhaggaVisana kappu. So what he basically advised, Papam sahayam parivajjayetha. So whatever the evil companionship should be avoided. One should avoid an evil companion. Anatta dasting visame nivittham. The person who is always showing the wrong path, always showing something harmful. And who, again, visame nivittham. And who is settled in the wrong place, wrong view, michaditti. Sayanna seve pasutang pamattang. And who is heedless. And again, one is not, say, ingenuine, or one is not skillful. The person who is not skillful and establishing on the wrong views and again heedless, so they are the bad people, bad friends. So eko chare KhaggaVisana kappu, and you simply don't go to associate them, and you try to live a secluded life. So basically, this highlights what a kind of a, say, impact on a person when one is associating wrong people, or one is taking advices from wrong people. So they actually will take us to the wrong path. Instead of the right path, they will put us into the wrong path. So instead of putting us into the right view, they may put us on wrong view. Actually, it is quite dangerous. So if one is doing something wrong oneself, that is only to that person. But when he doing something wrong by himself, if he is trying to advise and ask others also to do that wrong thing, then that is the most dangerous thing. And that is sometimes mentioned as wrong person, the most or the worst person. There are two categories mentioned in the Dhamma: the wrong person or the bad friend, and the worst friend is also mentioned. The bad friend is a person who doing something wrong, and that's it. He may be killing animals, he may be stealing, he may conduct adultery, sexual misconduct, he may lying, he may use intoxicants, and he is a bad person. He's a bad friend. So if you go and associate him, you may even get to the same side. But on the other hand, there's the worst person. No? He's not just bad, he's the worst. Why? He doing all those things. He does all those things. Say he's killing animals, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, intoxicants, etc. At the same time, he promote doing it. He advise others also to do the same. So that is the worst scenario. So that is where we have to be careful, and we sometimes have to recognize, okay, there are people who do something wrong, but they don't mingle with others. They don't go and convert, or they don't go and give wrong advices to the others. But on the other hand, there are certain others, while they conduct the wrong thing, they try to persuade others also to do the wrong thing. They are the most dangerous. And the second verse, Bahustutang Dhammadarang Bhajeta Mittang Ularang Patibhanavantang Anyaya Attani Vinaya Kankang Eko Chare KhaggaVisana Kapu. This verse actually talks the opposite. Bahustutang Dhammadarang. Now, Bahusutta is the term used for learnedness. So, he's a learned person. And Dhammadarang, he is a person who is known to the Dhamma. And such person has to associate. Mittang Ularang Patibhanavantang. They are noble, they are good and eminent. And again, Patibhanavantang, they are gifted. They have very different types of skills. Patibhanavantang. Gifted with ingenuity. They are gifted with various skills. Anyaya Athani Vinaya Kankang. And they are able to remove different doubts. And they know their own welfare, and they know the others' welfare as well. And you can associate such person, and that person may encourage seclusion. Eko Chare KhaggaVisana Kappu. Now, this verse is quite opposite to the previous one, but according to the commentary, this verse was uttered by another Pacceka Buddha. So, in this situation, there is again a king called Brahmadatta, and he is called a learned Brahmadatta, Bahusutta Brahmadatta. So, one day there were several Pacceka Buddhas came to his palace, and this king gave them alms, and the king asked, "Who are you?" So, even though he gave them alms, so he didn't have much understanding, much idea about these Pacceka Buddhas. So he therefore asked, "Who are you?" And then the Pacceka Buddhas have answered, telling that we are the learned. So then king thought to himself, okay, they are really learned. They are mentioning that they are really learned. And I am also named as learned Brahmadatta. So I am also named as an educated, learned Bahusutta Brahmadatta. So I better ask, what is their So this is the introspection, this is the idea went on in the king's mind. And so after giving alms, so he asked from one Pacceka Buddha, what did you learn? What are the things that you know? Then that Pacceka Buddha simply mentioned, king, you better eliminate lust. So I have learned that. So that's all. And he went out and the others also followed. And then the king was thinking, so I was expecting a really, huge explanation, a long discourse going on for many hours. I was expecting such a extremely academic, say, long discourse. But this Pacceka Buddha simply told me, the great king, you got to be free from lust. That's all he mentioned. Then he was thinking, I see, this person may not be really learned. So better I ask the next Pacceka Buddha next time, tomorrow, probably he might be learned. So they approached the next day also. And next day after alms round, so king asked from the Pacceka Buddha, the second Pacceka Buddha, could you explain what you learned? And then what happened was that Pacceka Buddha. So he mentioned, king, great king, you got to be free from hatred. That's it. And he get up and he went away. Other Pacceka Buddhas followed. Then king was thinking. So I was expecting a very, variated kind of sermon, lengthy sermon, quite descriptive sermon with many examples and this and that. But this Pacceka Buddha simply told me, great king, simply be free from hatred. That's all. Then he was thinking, okay, it seems this Pacceka Buddha also is not really learned. I better ask from the other Pacceka Buddha next day. So next day, then again he asked. Next day, the next Pacceka Buddha mentioned, the great king, you got to be free from moha. That is the delusion. That's it. And he went away. So likewise, king was thinking, and the other day, the other monk, another Pacceka Buddha, is mentioning you got to be free from the doubts. Likewise, only single statement addressing one kind of a defilement, and simply that's all that he preached. Then after this thing has happened, the king was thinking to himself, I was expecting a long discourse. I was expecting a descriptive, variated kind of a description, sermon. But these Pacceka Buddhas simply are telling themselves as learned. They simply make a very short single statement. Why is that? Are they really learned? Or am I really learned? Now this wise king, he was thinking. Now these Pacceka Buddhas, they were telling to be free from lust, to be free from hatred. Now, when I am trying to analyze this, when I want to be free from hatred, when I want to be free from lust, or if I can make my mind free from lust, so that indicates it will be free from hatred, it will be free from delusion, it will be free from all other defilements. Similarly, if I try to make my mind free from hatred, So it may eliminate all other defilements as well. So there is a kind of a connection. So even though it's a single statement, the sermon is simply one statement. So it has a great depth and it has to be practically implemented. It is not simply kind of a dogmatic ideology, but it is something that one has to practically live. One has to follow a path. Some sort of a practical approach should be there. So now the king was thinking. So after he was thinking like that, he was recognizing, okay, they simply have pointed out the moon. So I should not look at their finger. Instead of that, I should look at the moon. So this is a kind of a very beautiful simile, this verse mentioning, or the explanation given in the commentary. So it is simply a pointer that what the Pacceka Buddhas have given. But I should not look at their finger. I should not look at it narrowly. But I have to look at it broadly, how to implement it practically, how to get the benefit practically. So likewise, their short sermon is extremely deep, again extremely practical. And if I was able to implement even a single statement, that result in eliminating of all the other defilements. So likewise, king was thinking, reflecting again and again about their short teaching, and he understood this is the real learnedness. It is not that many perceptions, many information, tons of books. It is not the real teaching. It is not the real learnedness. Rather, how to implement this sort of a very practical teaching and then getting the practical benefits. So how I also can become such a learned person. So then king also has left the palace. He too practiced and he was able to become a Pacceka Buddha. And he uttered this verse. That is the explanation given in the commentary. So this actually explains in one sense the value of practical teaching. No point of talking in depth or in detail or lengthy discourses or lengthy sermons if we are not practicing it, if we are not trying to practically implement it. So therefore the king emphasizes, or this Pacceka Buddha emphasizes, so that practical teaching, that practical aspect of the teaching. And one should resort to the learned. So to such persons one should resort to. And who are the bearer of the Dhamma. And again, an eminent friend gifted with ingenuity. And they are really gifted with many, skills. Having known the benefits and removed doubt. And they don't have any doubts. And if we are able to associate such person, then we can live like a rhinoceros horn. Because we also get that strength. We also able to have such a confidence in ourselves. Okay, I'm learned not just because I have read so many books or I have several degrees. Rather, I know to myself. It is not merely a teaching which I have heard. It is not a teaching which I simply have contemplated. Rather, something that I am experiencing. Something I can verify. Something which is already available in the mind, already endowed in the mind. So I am an inheritance to that teaching. So likewise, if one is able to reflect on one's own skills, if one can connect one's own practice with the Dhamma, so that is really convincing. That is really encouraging, and that actually helps us to have enough confidence. Actually, till someone is really confident, so one may wander looking at this and that. One may ponder various different types of teachings and may go in search of different teachers because still one is not confident and one has various doubts and one is not really learned and one is not really experientially knowing the teaching or knowing the Dhamma. Therefore, there's a very interesting statement available in the Satipatthana Sutta. Buddha mentioned, Ekayano ayam bhikkhave maggo sattanang suddhya. There is monk, a direct path available to the purification of beings. Ekayano ayam bhikkhave maggo sattanang suddhya. Soka pariddavanam samatikkamaya. So in order to eliminate sorrow and lamentation. Soka pariddavanam samatikkamaya. Dukkha domanassanam atthangamaya. So in order to remove suffering and different types of mental despair, just to eliminate them. Dukkha domanassanam atthangamaya. Nyayassa adhigamaya. In order to know the path. So this knowing the path is not by simply hearing from someone. It's not something that you are copying from someone. You are asking from someone. This is something experiential. So Buddha highlights in the Satipatthana sermon that if one is practicing mindfulness continuously, slowly these practical, development has to be felt. One has to practically experience that there is something developing. There is certain different types of qualities developing in my mind. Say, for example, I didn't have, say, much concentration, but I am able to concentrate now for a fair amount of time. I didn't have enough mindfulness, but with the practice, now fair amount of mindfulness is available in the mind. Similarly, I didn't have enough understanding. Now with the practice, there is a fair amount of understanding available in the mind. So likewise, one can do a honest reflection, assessment. It is not kind of an overestimation, but rather if you do honest practice, diligent practice, so likewise you should be able to understand what are the developments happening in yourself. What are the characteristic or what are the character changes happening in ourselves, or the behavioral changes happening in ourselves. Are there any behavioral transformations happening? Is there any mental development happening? Or is there any cognitive transformation happening? So likewise, one can understand, okay, there is something different happening. There is something improvement happening. There is some sort of an advancement happening. So that should be evident. Then Buddha mentioned Nyayassa adhigamaya. So then he really know by himself, okay, this is the path to follow. This is the right thing to do. So this is, one can say, is a learnedness. There one can say, okay, I know the path. Buddha also has shown, and my selection, my confidence, or my aim is fairly in line with the Buddha's teaching. It is not simply merely by the faith, but one has followed the path, one has practiced the path. As a result of that, one can verify the qualities available in the mind with respect to the Buddha's teaching, and he himself is now quite confident, okay, this is the thing to do. I have to follow the path, I have to accomplish the goal, so this is the way to accomplish it. So likewise, therefore, beautifully Buddha mentioned in the Satipatthana Sutta, so if one is following such a practical approach, one may slowly become confident. Then he doesn't need to go after the others. He doesn't need to have so many doubts. So whatever the doubts he had are now slowly going away. His mind become more and more clear. Any perplexities he had now become less and less. And he doesn't have many questions. Rather, he is now confident on what to do. So likewise, Buddha very beautifully mentioned in these two verses as well. So one has to avoid the wrong people, wrong friends. And on the other hand, one has to associate the right people. Then there are many benefits. So with that, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Now I like to turn towards the question and answer session.
I'm sorry, Bhante. Currently, there's 5 questions. Question number 1, general question. Dear Bhante, this is practice-related Dhamma question. If the identity falls away with that, will the intention fall away as well? Or will that be retained, yet not associated to self? Meaning then, that acts will take place by the individual organically with necessary strength, without intention or tadiyama, with metta? That's the end of the question.
Chatu, can you repeat the question again?
Okay, it's not very clear, the question. I'll go slowly, but I don't think it's very clear what they're asking. Dear Bhante, this is practice-related Dhamma question. If the identity falls away, with that, will intention fall away as well, or will that be retained, but yet not associated to self? Meaning that the acts will take place by the individual with necessary strength.
What is
without
that?
intention.
What is that statement? That X, I couldn't understand. That you are talking that X.
Sorry. Yeah, the acts will take by the individual organ. I think that means naturally.
X, right? ACTS.
ACTS,
right, okay.
X. Yeah. The acts will take place by the individual, let's say naturally, with necessary strength, without intention or tadiyama, and that's the end.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the question, but giving a kind of a comprehensive answer is difficult. Now, in other terms, you are asking about the life of an arahant. So I don't have a practical experience with that, but I can talk with respect to the Dhamma. So are there any intentions in arahants? So that is one interesting question, by the way. Now, in the practice, actually, there may be certain situations that when you are doing even the Vipassana practice, so you may understand the intentions are not necessary. So when I have a kind of an intention, probably there may be a component of I, personality included there. So better to have no intention. So to keep the mind free from intention. So that is one stage that you may encounter in the practice. So it's an improvement in the practice. So as we discussed maybe in the last week, so appanihita vimokha is something that you achieve through that. So say for example, again this very beautifully mentioned in the Pottapada Sutta in Digha Nikaya, that someone is practicing, and when in order to achieve the next refined state, so he has to have an intention towards that next refined state, and he now let go of the gross state he was in. Now suppose now he is in a more refined state and he has mastered that, and now he wants to go further, and in order to go further he has to have an intention towards the next refined state, and now he has to let go of the present state. So likewise, it's a matter of letting go of the present gross state in order to achieve next refined state. So this is actually a path. This is something that Buddha recommends. Dannissaya dhampajahata. So you are using one state in order to let go of another gross state. Or you are using more refined state in order to let go of more gross state. And this should be a path, this should be a correct path. And as you are moving forward, there may be a situation that you might encounter. There is no point of making another desire. There is no point of making another intention. Rather, I may stop making intentions. So this is a very kind of a very subtle refinement happens in the practice. So rather than making another intention, let me keep the mind free from intentions. In other terms, Buddha mentioned, so even if I intend something, it also is vulnerable. It also is subjected to impermanence. It is also unsatisfactory. It is also non-self. So there is no point of intending another thing, another state. On the other hand, you are now directly addressing the bhava tanha. So bhava tanha is the one driving us towards another level, another state, another improvement. So always we are being driven by bhavatanha, the desire to become. You want to become someone. You want to achieve something. So likewise, continuously we are being driven by bhavatanha. How about ending bhavatanha? Instead of achieving something, how about ending bhavatanha? Ending the desire to become. So this is a very, very interesting, decision that the yogi might be taking. Now he is not making any desire. He is not making any intention. And as a result of that, Buddha mentioned, his mind is becoming free from any intentions, free from any desires. As a result of that, his mind becomes free. So this is called Appanihita Ceto Vimutti. Appanihita Samadhi, where the mind has entered freedom because there is nothing to wish, there is nothing to desire, there is no point of making another intention. So by the way, even though one may accomplish it, so now the question comes, are the Arahants always living that state and making no intentions at all? So that's another interesting question that we have to answer. But it's true, now he has no desire. Tanhakkaya, he has completely uprooted craving. Now can't he have any intention which is free from craving? These are very interesting questions that we can explore. That's something we can think of. Now say for example, now after Buddha become fully enlightened, so he has decided not to teach because he understood, okay, I mean, this teaching is very subtle, it's very difficult to explain, and people are with a lot of defilements. Therefore, there won't be any person who can understand what I'm going to tell. So it's a kind of a tiredness for me to try to explain. So therefore, I better mind my own business without going to teach. So that is the decision Buddha has taken. Now, Brahma Sahampati, it is mentioned. So Brahma Sahampati has understood this attitude available in the Buddha, and he quickly come and invite the Buddha, don't do that, Venerable Sir. There are people who are capable of understanding what we are trying to teach. So there are people who are with less defilements. So if you are not teaching, even those people who have the potential to realize the teaching also will destroy, also will downfall, subject to downfall. Therefore, please be compassionate towards them and therefore please teach. And then Buddha, it is mentioned, he reflected so about the whole world and he understood it is true and there are people with less defilements. So I better try to teach them. Then he decided to teach. So this decision also has an intention. So therefore, I feel that there may be possibility of having these intentions, which may be, we can say, some wholesome intentions. There may be some good intentions, and they may not have any craving. They may not have any, some sort of desires. And therefore, it is true that in certain other suttas Buddha mentioned that even though the other people are not following his teaching, he is not suffering. Even though someone is not following his teaching, so it is not something for him to become sorrowful. So if someone is really following the teaching, he is not really elated, but he's maybe having a pleasant feeling. But if someone is not at all listening to his teaching, even he is not shaken by that. So that kind of an unshakability is available in the mind. Therefore, it can be, we can see that the situation is quite different than how we think. So they may have, the Buddha or the Arahants may have various intentions. Those may be quite wholesome intentions. At the same time, even things go wrong. So there is no any kind of a repercussion. There is no any kind of say sorrow coming to them, because they are acting or they are behaving without any kind of any personal gain or fame or anything like that. So therefore, they are doing their best. That's it. So this is something that I like to share with you. But your question is something interesting that we have to further explore. Yeah.
Question number 2 of 5. This is a general question. Dear Bhante, would you please explain what does it mean by Chitta Visuddhi, much appreciation and merits with metta? That's the end of the question.
Yeah, I mean, typically Chitta Visuddhi is the purification of the mind, and purification of the mind happens when your mind is free from hindrances, 5 hindrances. So this is not something completely free from hindrances, but you are temporarily keeping the mind away from hindrances. So according to the what you call this Visuddhi, Satta Visuddhi, there are 7 stages mentioned in what you call the Ratavinita Sutta. So they are the first Visuddhi is the Sila Visuddhi, that you purify the mind with the what you call your body, and the speech is refined and you are not doing wrong things using body and speech. So that is the Sila Visuddhi. And once that you do the Chitta Visuddhi, where you are calming down the defilements. So then you have some amount of Chitta Visuddhi, some amount of purification of the mind. But that is a temporary suppression of the defilements. You do some samatha meditation, and that helps to temporarily subside defilements. So once you have such a concentrated mind, now you can continue your practice in order to further develop, wisdom. So that is coming ahead with the Ditti Visuddhi, Kanka Vitarana Visuddhi, Patipada Jnana Dassana, Magga Magga Jnana Dassana Visuddhi. So likewise, there are certain other purification levels explained. So the Chitta Visuddhi means that you are able to keep the mind away from defilements, away from hindrances temporarily. Yeah.
Question number 3 of 5. This is mindfulness in day-to-day activities. Dear Venerable Bhante, this is something I have noticed, and I hope I will get some advice to correct this habit. Let's say, in occasions I have enjoyed the company of a friend, I tend to replay it back from my mind or memory, even after the occasion is over, at other times. And the difficult part of it is that I enjoy it from the mind. Secondly, I tend to make fantasies and again enjoy them from the mind. I do not go behind any of these in worldly life, nor call people to keep relationships active, as I do not have any urge to follow up. And unlike others, I don't watch TV or movies, as I don't like it. I have dedicated my life to the practice, even as a lay person. However, this mental habit seems to be repeating against the progress of the path. Bhante, would you please be able to shed some light of advice to break this bad habit, please? As always, greatly appreciate and much merits with metta. That's the end of the question.
So the first statement is Chato, like he's doing, he associate others, and if that association go ahead with further thinking in his mind. So he's asking some solution for that.
Yeah, so I think he like meets a friend or something, or he or she, and then keeps replaying in the mind. I think that's basically the
replaying in the mind. Yeah, correct. So this is something that we have to recognize. So that is why we need to understand how even these associations try to make a self. Now, you know, say when you are practicing mindfulness and further developing wisdom, so you may be able to touch upon a state which is free from any grasping, free from any kind of inner chatter, kind of a silent dwelling. Say mind is silent and you are able to see, hear, smell, all these things are happening, but the mind is silent. But at this time, suppose that you do some activity, and that activity might repeat in the mind. So say, for example, you help some person, you help another person, and that activity has finished. But later, again and again, that activity replay in your mind. So why is that? So this, in a way, we can reflect, and these are the areas that we can actually further refine our practice. So what's the purpose of repeating that action in the mind? So you have practically helped another person, that's a good thing. But now, why is it repeating the same thing in the mind? So in one sense, actually this is encouraged at one level. So when you do some wholesome activity, it is explained that you can reflect it again and again, you can recall it again and again, so that wholesome activity become doubled, become further improved, or you can further accumulate merits. But this is, by the way, subjected to some amount of delusion. That in the Sammaditthi, there are two levels of Sammaditthi. Sammaditthi sasava punya bhagya upadi vepakka. That means there is one level of right view which is wholesome and deliver good, have influxes, have taints, have asavas. So this is what I am explaining now to you, is on this level, that you do something good, you know that this is a good thing, and you have a belief in the karma. So if I do something good, okay, the results also may be good. So I did it correctly. And so you are reflecting it again, so that you may be happy, and you are making a self, I am a good person, I am the one who did it. Without me, he was in a trouble. So it's a good thing that I did. So likewise, you reflecting, and one sense you may be happy by reflecting it. Katam me punyanti nandati. That is how it is mentioned in the Dhammapada. So you did something good, and you can again and again make yourself happy by reflecting upon it. So this is accepted. But later, when you are moving forward, there you develop further mindfulness, there you develop comprehension, there you develop the wisdom, and there you understand how mind make a self, how mind promotes self-view. So when you are in the correct path, when you are in the correct side, it may not be just because of wrong activities, unwholesome activities. It may be using wholesome activities in order to generate a self, in order to promote self-view. So therefore, the second point is that, say you did help someone, but now that helping activity, that good deed, is trying to promote a self. So at that time, if you are able to understand, okay, this is something that not necessary now. No point of making a self out of this. Whatever good thing I have done, that is well done, that's it. I don't need to recall it again and again and try to make a self out of it. So therefore, something that you can approach in the second level of Sammaditthi, which is not promoting any self-view, which is not promoting any kind of personality view, not promoting any taints, asavas. Therefore, Buddha mentioned Arya Lokuttara Magganga. Arya Anasava Lokuttara Magganga. So it is noble, it is free from taints, it is supramundane, and it's a path factor. So these are two levels that we are discussing. So you have to decide to which side you have to you are currently working on. Yeah.
Question number, I think it's number 4 or 5, mindful sitting. Dear Bhante, my sitting practice is observing the breath, and I can generally focus on the breath easily. Observing the differences of in-breath and out-breath, and then observe the middle, beginning, and end naturally. After 5 to 10 minutes of continuous mindfulness, the breath fades away and I enter to a spacious space where I feel calm and relaxed. After 5 to 10 minutes in this space and without a primary object, my focus shifts most of the time to the elemental characteristics in the body. I have been observing these elemental characteristics for some time now, more than 6 months, and they tend to be fading away into all of them into one spongy whirlpool-like observation. All this time, thoughts come and go, but I never had any intentions of observing them. I always come to the body and the elemental characteristics. If I get carried away by thoughts and try to keep them away, if I get carried away by thoughts, it's not really clear. Anyway, it says, and try to keep them away, thoughts in the outer periphery of my observations. To be honest, I do not like observing thoughts and are afraid of them. Observing thoughts face to face seems to be a kind of subtle and black art for me. Since I'm quite happy with my progress in elemental characteristics observation, I have some confidence now to bring the thoughts to the forefront and observe them face to face. I don't know if I should do this now or follow the path I know, which is to keep observing the spongy all-in-one elements. Appreciate Bhante's valuable advice how to start if I should focus on thoughts now. With metta, that's the end of the question.
I mean, if you are confident in practicing the typical, say, elements, so you can continue because it will generate more confidence in yourself. It will generate more wisdom in yourself, more understanding. So you don't need to quickly jump into the Chittanupassana, but you can take time, no harm. And even this practice, what you are doing is really a powerful practice. Kayanupassana itself is a very powerful practice. And therefore, you can further continue in this. And you may reach, using this practice, you may reach where your mind is stable, where your mind is free from thoughts even. So, for example, different element characteristics are manifesting in your body, and you are able to keep your attention there, and you are observing them, how they are changing, how they are behaving, how they are rising, how they are passing away. So likewise, suppose you are very carefully observing them. So if you do that again and again, slowly you may understand, okay, at that time there were no thoughts even. So you don't need to worry about the mind at that time because you are fully engaged in the element characteristics. You are observing them very carefully. You are very much in the Kayanupassana. So as a result of that practice, once you develop a fair amount of wisdom, so that itself can cause to have some sort of temporary release in the mind. So that is a kind of a significant improvement in one's practice. So after such is experience, probably later you can go to Chittanupassana. That is also possible. But I am not telling that it should be the always path. But later, as you are continuing this Kayanupassana, later you may feel that, okay, the thoughts are also now have become weaker. So there is no need of being afraid of them. So it's no more a black magic. Simply I can look at them. So you are gaining enough confidence. At that time, even though you were dealing with Kayanupassana, still you have enough confidence. At that time, you can even watch the mind. But for the time being, since you are not confident, you just continue with the Kayanupassana, no harm. Yeah.
Question number 5 of 7. General question. It's a Dhamma question. Dear Bhante, I've heard that the cause for existence, or bhava, is due to 4 ahara. I think it's not only the food we eat, but there are other types too. Bhante, would you please be able to explain what those 4 ahara are? With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, it's a descriptive question. 4 types of ahara, 4 types of nutriment would the mention. Kabalinkara ahara, the gross food, is the non-ahara, non-food that you also have mentioned, and that is quite common, quite visible to us. So that is the gross food, Kabalinkara ahara. Then there's another type called Passa ahara that you always encounter different contact. Say your eyes with forms, your ears with sounds, nose with smells, tongue with the tastes, body with various tactile sensations, and again mind with various mental objects. So that is also some amount of or some kind of consuming food. So without you are getting enough food through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, so they can't live. So basically we are getting different source of food through these senses. So that is called passa ahara. And then called mano sanchetana ahara. So you are making different decisions, you are making different chetana, volitions to do something. I want to do something. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to become someone. So likewise, all these decision making, say preparing the mind, determining the mind, making different kinds of volitions. So that is called mano sanchetana ahara. So that is also motivating the person. That is also helping the person to go on and on. So you can understand. So all these are driving forces. All these are in a way nutriments for the sustenance of the life. And the other one is called vijnana ahara. So always vijnana, the consciousness, say associating some kind of a namarupa, some sort of a name and form. So without name and form, he can't sustain. So the vijnana, the consciousness, always try to associate name and form, and on the other hand, eye, ear, nose, tongue, using those, they are trying to through the senses, they are trying to get different types of consciousness, and again try to establish with some name and form. So that is a very subtle level of ahara, nutriment. So they are the real driving forces in the samsara. So therefore Buddha mentioned 4 categories of nutriments. Yes, it's a very deep subject, very interesting subject. Let's see in the future, we'll discuss them in detail.
Bhante, there's 2 more questions and we're just about to go over time. Do we have time today?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Question number 6, general question. Avasai Bhante, I used to practice mindfulness through daily sitting meditation, but had to stop for a couple of weeks due to a temporary health condition. Since then, I faced difficulty in practicing with Shraddha. Also, I am always resolving myself to be mindful during life situations and make full use of practice, but fail more often than not, discouraging my efforts. I'm suspecting, perhaps, that is contributing to reduced practice. Could you advise on how to face these mental obstacles continuing in the path? That's the end of the question.
Yeah, that is how, we have to slowly address them. It is depending on the situation, depending on the circumstances, that you have to take different actions in order to overcome those difficulties or those obstacles. And definitely they will come on our way. So there is no one who is completely free from any obstacle. That everyone, when we are trying to practice, there may be different types of obstacles. So that is where we need enough courage, need enough effort to overcome different types of obstacles. And if we are talking only about the say different kinds of defilements happening in the mind, or different vitakka, thoughts happening in the mind. So there are many suttas explaining by the Buddha how to overcome different thoughts available in the mind, unwholesome thoughts available in the mind. And I invite you to refer even today's or last week's Sinhala Dhamma sermon, which I made on Sunday morning session. So that is where we are discussing how to overcome proliferation, mental proliferation. So that is an area, very interesting area, and I invite you to look at that as well.
Question number 7, this is the last one. It's actually a continuation from one of the previous questions. It's about the one where things repeat in the mind. So, dear Venerable Bhante, thank you for the advice. Much appreciated. With regards to what repeats in the mind, are not good or bad. They are just normal day-to-day activities, such as having lunch with a friend. I find that mind repeating the moments and what was talked before. I want to stop getting caught to this and making self. With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, good. I mean, once you understand that, so slowly allow the mind to quieten. So because no point of allowing the mind to repeat on the same telecast, no point. So you can simply keep the mind quiet. So that is where we need a fair amount of practice. So development of mindfulness, development of concentration, using which development of wisdom. So all those practices helps us to overcome all different types of wrong thoughts or unnecessary thoughts and keep the mind quiet, keep the mind more clean, clear, calm, peaceful. So slowly, actually, we have to look at the health of the mind. So is he talking? Is he associating wrong thoughts, mental objects? Or is it calm, peaceful? So likewise, we have to check ourselves. Actually, you are doing it. That is why you understood that mind is repeating something happened with a friend. But it is not really unwholesome or wholesome. It's simply some sort of a memory. But it represents some amount of restlessness in the mind. So mind can't still keep quiet. Mind can't still steady. Rather, it is jumping this and that. There is no real target. There is no real aim. So it is what we call as restlessness. So how to maintain the mind free from restlessness? These are the areas that we need to learn. So by the way, the practice helps us to understand how to overcome restlessness and to keep the mind quiet. And if you are, say, practicing Vipassana, how to keep the mind in observation of different kind of phenomena so that you are able to develop some wisdom. Likewise, many approaches are there. So don't encourage it. Don't encourage this unnecessary thinking, and try to see whether you are able to have a quiet mind. Yeah.
That ends the questions for today, and we've gone over time, so I'll close this fairly quickly now. I'd first like to pass on our thanks for Bante's guidance with all these questions and sharing of knowledge. Also to with any merits that we've accumulated, we'd like to share them. And also to the people seen and unseen helping and participating. And lastly, to the participants, because without you, there would be no program. With that, I'd like to end. Thero Saranai.
Yeah, Thero Saranai.